But yeah, before I get into this, I wanted to mention the weirdness of how Miami is in the Eastern Conference Finals and then the Lakers are in the Western Conference Finals. That's an 8 seed and a 7 seed, respectively, which I was planning on looking this up before we recorded, but I forgot. I don't know if that's ever happened before. I doubt that it's ever happened before, seeing as there's only been one 8 seed to ever even make the finals. I doubt there was also a year where there was an 8 seed and a 7 seed, both in the conference finals. But yeah, Jacob, our stat guy, he's our co-host and our stat guy, wears both hats. He's checking on that right now.
Well, a 7 seed has never even made the NBA Finals, so no is the answer.
Well, could they have made the Western Conference Finals though, or like the conference?
Oh, just making a conference finals.
Yeah. The situation that we're in right now, where there's an 8 seed and a 7 seed that are both in the Final Four, I feel like that's probably never happened.
The last time the 7 seed made it to the conference finals was the 1987 Supersonics.
87.
And they lost to the Lakers in 87.
Okay, so
and the last time an 8 seed made it past, or made it 99? Was 99. So I don't think they've ever lined up.
Because that was the Knicks in the finals.
That was the Knicks. Yep.
The Patrick Ewing-less Knicks.
The 50 game season.
Yeah. The origin of the Ewing theory, which for those who don't know is the concept of a team that gets better when their best player doesn't play.
Did not happen to the Bucks this year, if you were wondering.
Yeah, it did not. But we talked a little bit about that with Ja and the Grizzlies before. Kind of fits in that. But yeah, so that probably has never happened. We're not definitively saying that yet, but regardless, I guess we can just jump into this Nikola Jokic thing finally. But yeah, I guess I'll move into my Nikola Jokic victory lap, which is just, I don't know, it's kind of dumb that it even needs to happen. But the fact that it needs to happen is kind of, what I'm talking about here with just kind of the disrespect. I don't know if I want to call it disrespect, but like the narrative and the conversation around Jokic this season took a turn for the worse, I guess, in a way. Like past few seasons, everybody talking about Jokic for the most part all loved him, other than his, few haters. And that's like the role that they play, like the Nick Wrights, of the world. That's like his thing. His job on TV is to talk about how Nikola Jokic is not as good as people think. But so, yeah, the way that people have been talking about him this year, I guess, like people like Kevin O'Connor and people that used to be Jokic lovers, I guess, how they kind of turned on him in a way. I hesitate to say turned on him because really all they were doing was just talking about how they prefer Joel as the MVP over him, which isn't like an insult necessarily. But I guess a lot of the reasonings that people were having with like the playoff success thing and how he shouldn't get a third straight MVP since if they haven't done much in the playoffs. And to me, I just always thought that conversation or that point was dumb because number one, it's not true. Like the precedent thing where they say that the only 3 people who have won 3 MVPs, Wilt, Bird, and Russell, all had a title before they won their 3rd MVP. That's not true. Wilt won his first championship in the postseason after the season where he had his 3rd MVP awarded to him. So it was technically the same year, but he got awarded the MVP before he had a championship. So technically Jokic would have been in the same spot that Wilt was. And besides that, also we're talking about a guy who in the postseason, the only sample that you can really judge him on for this precedent because he took a huge leap from, 4 years ago, like the year before his MVP season was like, he was a solid player, like borderline top 10 player in the league. And then all of a sudden he was like arguably the best player in the league, in his MVP year. Like that was just a huge jump. So if you're judging his playoff success before that, it's just kind of dumb to me because it's like, well, yeah, he wasn't the 3-time MVP yet. And then in his years where he was a MVP, he didn't have his second best player or third best player or a lot of other role players for most of those series, and somehow still put up some of the best playoff numbers the world has ever seen. He had both of the past 2 years, he was top 10 all time in PER in the playoffs. And he's beating his own record in that this year by ranking 5th. But Jacob, it sounded like you were going to say something a little bit ago.
Yeah, I like to make the kind of counter argument. It's not the fact that it's that if you brought up the injuries, which is, we've already talked about this in a previous episode.
Yep.
$1,000,000% valid. Completely valid. But the Nuggets always disappointed in the playoffs. It felt like.
Can you give me a year where it seemed like the Nuggets didn't make it as far as they should have? Like, that's what I just don't get. I feel like people just say it because they're like, oh, I know the Nuggets have never won the championship and they have a really good player, so they must have disappointed in the playoffs. But I can't think of a single year where we were favored going into a series that we should have, made it past or something like that. Like in Jokic's 2 MVP seasons, the
swept.
first We were swept in the second round
Yep.
by the Phoenix Suns. And that was a big coaching thing, too, because they kept running an action at us, putting Jokic in the pick and roll, and we were running drop coverage. So they had guys that were killing us in the mid range with Chris Paul and Devin Booker, and Michael Malone just didn't change anything. And then the second year was against the Warriors in the first round, who went on to win the championship. And Jokic put up insane numbers that series. So,
but you would like, what seed were the Nuggets?
the last year,
3-6?
we were the 6th seed. They were the 3.
They gave an MVP to a 6 seed.
Yeah, that was the whole thing, because that's why people didn't like. Yeah, people didn't like it, but it was like he didn't have Jamal or Michael Porter Jr. the entire season, and was able to keep the Nuggets as like a competent team that were like. And like the thing is, they were the 6th seed, but they were much closer to like the 3 seed than they were the 7th seed.
Yes, I do remember this now. They were like a couple, like it came down to the last week of the regular season to decide where things were going to be and how things were going to end up. And I remember that now.
They were like a couple games, maybe a game behind the Sixers, who were like the 3 seed in the East. They had like almost the same record that the Sixers did, who was the other candidate for the award. You know, the person who would have got it if Jokic didn't get it was on a team that was performing like equally as well.
So then you would argue that Giannis should not have been held against him year 3.
I agree with that. Yeah, I do.
It shouldn't have been held against him then at all.
Wait, so Giannis is what his 3rd year could have been, his 3rd MVP year?
It should not have been held against, like, because the same argument was made that, well, he chokes every year, ended up going on to win the finals.
Yeah, but I don't even think, okay, yeah, that was a part of the narrative for why he didn't win his 3rd MVP, but I never agreed with that. I think
that's what I was asking, is you still disagreed with it?
Yeah, I did. But also, he had other reasons for also maybe not winning it, because his team didn't perform near as well during the regular season that year as they had in the past. That was the year they won the title, but during the regular season, they were like I think they were the 3 seed. Like they were pretty average, you know, out East. They had like the same record as the Nuggets basically, and the Nuggets were much more undermanned. So if you look at it like that, I guess it just kind of makes sense. Like Jokic is he does more with less. Like that's kind of been the case for him the past 2 years. This year it was, now you're seeing him with an actual pretty competent team around him. It's not like this team is like world breakers or anything like that, but they're at least competent. They're not like Facu Campazzo and Austin Rivers as his backcourt. And then he turned them into the best offense in basketball for a long time, up until the last month of the season, where they decided to just take it really easy and not let anybody get hurt before the playoffs, but really did not help his, like if he cared about the MVP, like there's no way he does, because we would not have seen him play the way he did down the stretch of the season, because he was very like he didn't care about the last month of the season, and he didn't care that was going to cost him his MVP. And it was quite the opposite for Joel. Joel was definitely using that time of the year to campaign for that award. But yeah, I guess going back to the playoff thing, it's just facing the Warriors. I'm pretty sure the Warriors were favored in that series, and facing the Suns were definitely favored in that series in the second round after we beat the Blazers. And that was also, people overlooked that the Blazers team wasn't bad that we were going against in the first round, and we won pretty definitively. I mean, I think it was 6 games, but it was kind of like this Sun series 6 games where we blew them out a few of the games. And if you look at the point differential, we destroyed them, but there was just a couple of games that were close that we lost. That was similar for the Portland series. And also their backcourt was arguably the best backcourt in the NBA that season, with Dame and CJ. And we were going against them with our 3rd string point guard and our 2nd string shooting guard, who both do not. I guess Austin Rivers played a little bit for the Timberwolves this year, but Facu Campazzo is not even in the league anymore. But yeah, I guess there's that. I think that if you want to get into, unless you had any other thoughts, we could start getting into like this season in the postseason, what it's looked like for the Nuggets.
Yeah, that works. Just one. I feel like if the arguments had to be considered valid in terms of the Jokic not underperforming, but his team struggling in the playoffs compared to Giannis, people gave Giannis a hard time because he couldn't get to the finals.
But no, the difference is the Bucks were supposed to win like a lot of those series that they were in, and they like collapsed. The Nuggets have never had a series where they were like, oh, they should win this. Like they never choked away a series. That never happened.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Because like Giannis lost that ugly 5-game in the bubble to the Heat.
Yeah.
And then the next year, they lost the year before they lost to the Raptors in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah. And they were supposed to win both. The Raptors series, they were favored and they won 60 games in the regular season. The one against the Heat was even worse. You know,
I know the one in the Heat was, but that was also the bubble.
So what? I don't understand that.
The bubble's not like it doesn't. It's a whole weird deal.
It's different, but everybody's playing in the same circumstances.
Yes, but the Bucks' home court and the Heat's home court are very different. I'm not saying Giannis didn't perform because he didn't. I think he also got hurt in that series.
Yeah, but that was at the very end. That was
game
the one
4
game.
and 5.
Yeah, and one of those games was the one they won because Chris Middleton turned into Michael Jordan after
he went out. Like he does.
Yeah.
But no, and I'm not like I said, I don't think that the argument makes a whole ton of sense. Also, part of it's because Embiid has been like the bridesmaid every time and never the bride, and so he finally got the.
But I don't get the postseason argument. Joel's had much worse postseason success than Jokic. It's not even close.
100%. Fully aware.
So I don't understand why they're like the argument against Jokic for why it should be given to Embiid is that he doesn't win enough.
No, I'm saying Embiid has always been but he's never gotten it. And MVP is like 30% story anymore.
I get that, but I'm saying that people, it's like they forget what they just said about the last person when they're going through their candidates. You know what I mean? Like it's like the case for Embiid is like he's really good and he hasn't won one yet, so people want to give it to him. But then your argument for why Jokic shouldn't win it is something that you could use against Embiid even more. You get what I mean?
No,
it doesn't make sense.
I am all for Joel Embiid crying every possible turn. Not a fan of the dude, but that's
you always used to be,
huh?
I
like that he like the way but like ever since he started turning on his teammates is when I kind of have lost him. Like his little, well, I never got the ball in the last 4 minutes.
Yeah, and his thing with the Ben Simmons
justified.
Thing. Oh, that
one doesn't bug me. But that's like when it started, and now he's just way more loose with teammate blame. And I'm just like, well, that's a little bit. If you're going to be the best guy on your team, you take an L. You just do. Speaking of, this is kind of backtracking a little bit. The Jason Tatum comments of he's one of the best basketball players in the world, humbly, that was wild.
Yeah.
More the fact that he had the I'm going to say it, after going 5 for 21.
Yeah.
And he's not wrong. That sentence that he said isn't wrong in the slightest.
No.
But that's the dude I want leading my basketball team, because to be a guy, you have to have that level of just like unwarranted confidence at times.
Yeah.
And then he also, but the way that he said it was, thanks to my teammates for keeping me in it and telling me to keep shooting.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they kept us in the game, and then they told me to keep taking shots. So when they started landing, they kept feeding me. I'm like, you know what? There's been worse things, but this is when it comes into more of like, not that Joel Embiid's a bad person. He also cries hilariously. So I am hoping Sunday I get a hilarious cry.
You're saying that the way he cries is hilarious? Is that what you're saying? Okay.
I think it's because he's such a big person, like me being fat and dancing, that's why it's entertaining. But like his whole body moves, but he's like a lot of body.
I don't know if I've seen like...
Yes, you have.
I've seen him crying, but I don't know if I've seen that before.
His whole body's just like, oh, it's so funny.
Like the one where they lost to like the Kawhi,
Raptors.
Yeah. The bouncing shot.
And then when he ran into the locker room.
Ran into the locker room. Yeah, I remember that.
Oh, man. He cries almost every year.
Yeah. Also, I've always liked Embiid too, and I'm not saying I don't anymore, but I started to look at him very differently during this season with the whole how he started taking shots at Jokic and then just didn't play against him.
That was hilarious.
When he very well could have. And apparently people in Denver said that he was spotted in the arena, like he was hiding in where the team, like basically around the locker room area, like, but he just never was out on the court or anything. So he was there.
It's the hashtag Embitch.
Yeah.
EMBIID, or I can't even spell. Anyway, but no, that was, Also, I like Embiid when he's not playing the Celtics. Like, I feel like there's a lot of guys where I'm like, I love Trae Young. And like, even in that Hawks series this year, I was like, oh, man, I love Trae Young so much, but I know how he does it. Like, I'm watching and I'm like, if this was 28 other teams in the NBA, I'd be fine with that. Like, this is hilarious. This is awesome. But him watching hit the 3 at the buzzer, then and I'm like, oh my, I want to punt that dude across the room. But no, it's and they're good entertainers, both of them. They're like, for sure. Joel Embiid's gonna end up in the WWE after he's done playing basketball, probably. But that
fits really well. Honestly, him and Giannis would work, like in a different way. Giannis would work as a WWE.
Yeah, Giannis would
guy.
be a baby, and then Jokic will disappear. Jokic is a dude. We'll see his jersey get retired, and then we won't see him again until like NBA 150 or 125, whatever they come bring him back and say
they're at 76.
100 is too close. No, he'll disappear longer than that.
You don't think he'll come to the 100-year anniversary thing?
I think the only thing he likes about basketball is basketball. And he probably likes the money, like what human being wouldn't. I think he hates being famous.
Yeah, I don't think he cares about that. But
maybe cares is a better term.
Yeah, he's very nice to the people he interacts with, though. You know what I mean? Like when he does interact with fans and with like reporters and people like that, he's always pleasant. Yeah. So it's not like he's like everybody get out of here. But I don't think. Yeah, I agree. He doesn't. I mean, just look at what he's doing right now in between the series. Did you see that when they asked him what he was going to do on his break? He's like, I'm going to watch my friend race horses in Italy and Copenhagen. And go to the swimming pool, hopefully.